Okay, you're live on all of them, Matthew. You can kind of just introduce and wait for people to join.
Okay, perfect. So welcome to the Orange Art Gallery in Ottawa, Canada. Welcome to my exhibition. So this live broadcast is going to be on Instagram, Facebook, on YouTube also. The purpose of this is, well, to show my works, to show this new exhibition that just opened. A lot of you live very far, you cannot come, there's a pandemic. Some of you live really close, but you know, there's still the fear of the virus. So I thought of doing, well, this live broadcast from the gallery, just to show the paintings, talk a bit about each work, so you get an experience of what it is to visit this exhibition, but virtually without any risk. So, well, first, thanks a lot for following me, for liking my work. And just, oh yeah, I'll say a few words in French, because a lot of people who follow me speak French. La raison pour laquelle cette présentation est en anglais et non en français, c'est que mon auditoire est principalement composé d'anglophones. Et c'est simplement parce que je suis pas capable de traduire simultanément tout ce que je dis. Et aussi parce que, on est à Ottawa, ça doit être la capitale nationale du Canada, mais le français, c'est pas non plus très répandu. Alors, force est de constater que cette présentation sera en anglais, mais si vous avez quelques questions que ce soit, commentaires, écrivez-moi en français. Je vais me faire un plaisir de vous répondre. Alors, so, let's begin.
And Matthew, before you do, you should let people know how many works you're going to show, how many have sold, how many are available, and how they can contact you if they're interested in one.
Yes, so yesterday was an amazing night. It was the official physical opening of the exhibition. So there are 20 pieces, 20 works in the show. 13 have been sold already, so that's a lot. This never happened to me before, selling so many works before, or at the opening. It's more than half of the works. So that's an incredible response. So I'm really thankful, and I met some wonderful people. Yesterday was really an amazing night. I spilled some wine on my white shirt again. Like it's the second time in 2 openings that I do that. So that's why I'm wearing black today. To avoid that. But also I want to say a few words about the theme of the show. It's around Van Gogh. It's called Pangorama. So like an over-attention on the work and life of Van Gogh. Why? Because I really love his work first, of course, but as a character, Van Gogh is really interesting for me, because he had this, his art was very extravagant, was very wonderful, lots of colors, and it's a really strong contrast with his life, which was, well, we have to say miserable. He had very few friends, he dealt with problems of mental illness, he was very isolated, he was relying on his brother, Theo. So this very strong contrast between a very colorful and bright and lively art, a life that was really struggling, is something I find really interesting. And also all his works are so authentic. He really painted the subjects, the people, the places around him. He painted peasant shoes and peasant boots, and subjects that we're not used to. And also the way he used color is totally subjective, which was absolutely revolutionary at that time. So I have lots to say on Van Gogh, but this show in particular, I tried to reinterpret some of his works, and also to give them a sort of contemporary twist, a lightness and a playfulness to them. So it was a really strange experience, well, strange and also fun experience to do that in this period of confinement, to paint these fluorescent colors, and to sort of pervert some of his works. It was a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy. So let's go and see them. Let's begin here with this small one. This one is a small portrait of Van Gogh at age 13. So I tried to embody or like to show the sort of inner turmoil that we see that will affect him later on. So that's why the very strong colors. There's a lot of impasto on this piece. It's very dense. So I'm very glad that this piece sold to a really nice guy in Florida. Hi, Brian.
Matthew, Steve's asking you, do you try to use the same pigment in impasto as Vincent?
Do I use the same pigments?
And impasto as Vincent.
Yeah, impasto is basically just really thick paint. So it's just the paint that I use, but applied very thickly. Maybe one thing I should say is that my paint supplier, Cama Pigma in Montreal, they have a special recipe for me. They do, like they have a Laca recipe, if you wish. They put less oil. So there's more pigment and the paint is thicker, and so it doesn't fall off the canvas when I apply it. So this is one trick. All right, let's continue into this series of 4 works that are hung together because I thought it was a nice grid composition.
And Matthew, it's a little hard to see the red dots, so if you just let people know which one was sold and then which one was
The yellow one, irises with apple, because there's a little iPhone there painted. So this one is sold, but the other one are available. So there's Joseph Roulin on social media. There's a portrait of Van Gogh with black heart, and there's also a self-portrait in confinement. So I'm going to talk more about these 3 ones, the gray ones. Joseph Roulin was Van Gogh's good friend. He was a postman. So I thought he was an interesting character to have this portrait of a bearded man, and I surrounded him with floating hearts, which is a bit ironic. I thought it was like, on Facebook when you have like floating hearts or, likes. So I thought of doing like a contemporary twist on this character, his friend. So that was a lot of fun. And
Can you zoom in on the detail?
Zoom in? Yeah, sure. We can zoom in on these. Also, there's one thing that I did that I previously haven't done was these lines in the background. So it gives a more contemporary look. It was hard to paint, and I tried in this one to have it sort of as if the figure was translucent. So it's almost like it becomes a bit ghostly because the stripes come through. They were painted over after. I thought it was more moody. I don't know if it's the right word in English. Also, I always put a lot of attention on the eyes. I mean, that's the focal point of portraits, right? So maybe that explains why I only painted the eyes on this self-portrait. It started out as a regular portrait, but then I painted the eyes and I really loved the silhouette, how very simple that was. So I left it in this sort of unfinished look, and I added this there's a lot of paint on there. I don't know if you can see that. There's like almost an inch of fluorescent pink. So I thought that this particular self-portrait was a good way to show the isolation we live nowadays with this pandemic and all the measures. Like there's physical isolation and we wear masks. So painting someone and just focusing on the eyes, the visible part, I thought was a good way to embody this impression of isolation, but yet the heart comes as a reminder of the emotional connection we have despite this physical isolation. So if you have any questions, please, I don't know if you see some coming, Patrick, or comments, whatever. This is interactive, so please interrupt me.
You have one that says, what went through your mind when Thanos, his Josh Brolin character, bought your Sam.
Sorry, I didn't understand that.
Oh, they're asking what went through your mind when Josh Brolin bought your Sam.
Yeah, I was thrilled. I mean, that's wonderful. He's a really nice guy. And by the way, let's move on to this painting because he also bought this one. Yeah, he bought two works from the show, this one and a smaller sunflower on the other side. You don't have to show it right now. So, yeah, I mean, I was thrilled. And he's a really nice guy, very humble, very down to earth. So he's an avid, I'd say, art collector, really nice guy. His wife too is really nice. So he really loves art.
And this one's called Vincent.
Yeah, there's humor in that series. This one is called Vincent or Vincent. So someone screaming because I wanted to show the crisis, the breakdown. So it's a bit of a hysterical portrait. That's why also the dripping, the splatters, that impasto, which totally abstracts the eye, and also a kind of funny touch in the earphones that replace the bandage ear of Van Gogh's own self-portrait. So that was a lot of fun to do.
You have a question from Janice that said, what gave you the idea to use the tape for the stripe effects?
The idea, I was just experimenting, really. When I start a new series, I often want to just explore new things. So I had this idea of, I wanted something to happen in the background. So also all these stripes, they become very dynamic. So I don't have one insert, there's no one meaning to the stripes. It's just I wanted to explore that, see what it does to the portrait. If it comes through the face, what does it do? Also, I find it's a bit like a music score. So there are ideas that come to mind when I think of the stripes. Also, trying to break them or disrupt them was fun. I hope it answers your question, but painting is very intuitive. You do things and you don't know really why, because doing it is the reason why you're doing it. So afterwards you think about it and you might come with a reason, but sometimes it applies, it doesn't. Let's just move on.
You have one additional question from Kimberly. It says, do you sketch first, or do you just start painting and let the idea evolve?
I usually sketch on the canvas itself, but then I sketch, and as I sketch, it evolves, and as I paint, it evolves. And some of the works, like for instance, the sunflower in on the other wall there, on black background. Initially, it was a portrait, and you can see that because there's still the impasto of the portrait, but then I painted over it, and I was not really satisfied, and I painted over it. So I sort of deleted everything that I had done as a portrait, and it became this lonely sunflower in the place of the eye, and that's it.
And this is an interesting question. You have one from India, and it says, how much time does it take to create a painting?
How long does it take to create a painting?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it depends on the size and the complexity. For this one, for instance, I'd say around a week. For smaller ones, just a few days, and for really large ones, especially if there are multiple figures, it can take to a month or maybe more. So, but the way I work is I work in oil and I put a lot of paint, so it has to dry before I rework it. So I work with layers. So I paint one layer, I leave it to dry, I work on another piece and another piece, and sometimes I have like 20 or 30 pieces in progress. So I can work on many pieces, and then I'd say like most of them have four layers.
Okay.
Let's move on to this one. This one is a portrait of Armand Roulin. It's after a work by Van Gogh. Armand Roulin was the son of Joseph Roulin, the postman we saw earlier. And I titled it after the game because I added the Yankees cap, which is, of course, a contemporary detail. In this one, what I really loved was painting the shadows in a very strong green. This is something Van Gogh used to do because he liked really strong colors. So instead of painting shadows dark, he would paint them green, which is really interesting. And I think that the overall palette of this piece is very, as well as the gaze of the figure, is very melancholic and peaceful. I really love it.
Did this one sell, or is this one still?
No, this one is still available. There are still really good ones available. So
maybe quote the price for the ones that are still available, just so people know.
Quote the price.
Mm-hmm.
This one is $2,100 Canadian.
Okay.
And if you're interested in any pieces that we're showing today, you can inquire at the gallery or send me a message. We'll answer your questions. This one here on the door is Sunflower at Night, was also sold yesterday. There's a lot of impasto on this one. I don't know if you can grasp that, but it was a bit of a fantasy to paint because at night colors change. What appears to be a certain color can be totally different, and I thought it would give a very supernatural look to have a sunflower, which is so much associated with yellow, to have it blue. The opposite color. So that was fun. There's also a piece still available of blue sunflowers, which is in Toronto at the Thompson Laundry Gallery if you want to see it.
Steve said on the last one that the green nose reminds him of Matisse. Do you have any sense of that?
Reminds him of what?
Matisse.
Oh yeah. Matisse totally did that. Yeah. Yeah, this is really fun actually to use green in the flesh tones because everything that's warmer becomes a lot warmer. It's really painterly pleasure. So we have this piece called Vanitas now. Vanitas, there's a traditional subject in painting which is, I think in English we say vanitas, but in French we say vanité. It's basically a still life, but with things like a skull or candles. It's just a way to represent the ephemeral quality of life. So it's like a reminder. So this is the subject that I used in this particular piece, borrowing from Van Gogh, like his Gloria Rose, or the head of his smoking skeleton that I also borrowed. And I added this book, which is a book that I read during the time I painted this piece, which is a really good book. It's called The Death of the Commendatore by Haruki Murakami. I thought it was really, really good. The main character is a portrait painter. So this piece was sold yesterday at the opening, which was really a nice surprise. This yellow is really powerful. It illuminated my studio as I painted it. Now let's move on to the, I'd say the most colorful one in the show. It's called Daydream. This one was really hard to paint because I started out with a very bright fluorescent red. So when I stopped looking at the painting, everything turned green because it was so strong. The subject is, I took as a basis for the subject of this painting the chair that Van Gogh painted. And he painted it a bit like if it was a self-portrait. It was a very humble straw chair. He also painted a chair that would represent Gauguin, but his chair was this one. And then I have no explanation. I just, out of a fantasy, I painted a portrait of his head on it. And there's nothing really dramatic about it. Of course, it reminds us of Saint John the Baptist, but there's nothing gruesome. You know, it's like he's sleeping. It's very peaceful, and I wanted to convey his dream that was really made of colors. And, try to come out with an image that would embody this dream of colors. So that's why there's this swirling, dripping. By the way, this was a bit risky to throw this paint on the canvas because even though I can control the color and the amount and the movement, there's always a certain randomness to it, and you never know where it will fall and how it will look. But I thought it went really well, and I also tried to modulate it a bit. So.
And this one is still available?
Yes, this one is still available. So I think it embodies really the tragic quality of Van Gogh, as well as this intense colors and the dream that he had of just portraying and loving his surrounding. And yeah, I have trouble finding words sometimes. I think it's better just to look at the paintings. Let's move on. This piece is the last one I painted in the show. I really love this piece because there is this very sad look in the eyes and kind of despair in the expression, but yet also had this very like pink candy color, like cotton candy color, which is totally opposite to this despair and sadness. Really, it reminds us more of a naive little girl, I'd say. And also in the background, I refer to his last painting, which is a wheat field with crows. So I think it's very dense, this painting. It was great fun to do it. Like sometimes I know when I paint something that it's gonna be good, and this is one of the times. So I'm very happy that this piece sold. So it's going to New Jersey to a very nice couple. Let's move on to this one. Well, these two actually. So there's a bouquet of sunflowers. with some fluorescent background. And then I added this cell phone here as a sort of contemporary detail. And then there's Van Gogh in Crisis. This was actually the first piece that I painted in the series, and gave me the idea of the whole series. I love the expression. It's like he's looking at his landscape, trying to figure out what colors he will use. And also there's a lot of, abstraction in there. There are some shapes, geometrical shapes. And it's as if he was dissolving in this sort of door, so an opening to another dimension, if you wish, which is very, very colorful. Now let's move on to the biggest piece of the show, which I was very happy sold yesterday, going to Florida. So this piece, well, most of you probably know that Van Gogh's favorite color was yellow. So that's why recently I tried to paint him sort of buried in this very intense yellow. That's why the yellow background. And there are sunflowers coming out of his neck or body. It's as if, he's dead and he's alive, and he has this vision, very intense gaze. And all the splatter sort of lead to his gaze. I often do that in my paintings, so that when you look at it, your gaze is sort of directed towards the iris and the pupil. You say that in English, pupil? No.
Yeah.
You do?
Pupil.
Pupil, yeah. Thanks. So maybe you can do a little close-up now of this eye. Now if you step back a little, on this wall I hung the biggest piece and the smaller one, because I composed the wall as if it was a painting itself, and I really love the fact that he's sort of looking at this work, or looking at this sunflower, and there's something really large and something smaller one, something smaller. So here, it's just a simple sunflower on a black background. There's a bit of reflection now because the light is coming through from what you can see. At first, this piece was a portrait. So, as I said before, you can sort of grasp the outline of the head. And there was an eye here, and the other eye was the center of the sunflower. So it totally evolved in a totally new direction. I don't know, something didn't feel right, or I wasn't totally satisfied. And I just made this radical decision of transforming this portrait into a single solitary sunflower, which I think ultimately worked. It becomes very dramatic on this black background. This piece was also bought by Josh Rowland. I guess he saw the same thing. Let's move on to this piece, which I find is the most funny one. It's funny and it's serious at the same time, but so it's obviously a reinterpretation of Van Gogh's bedroom. Most of you probably recognize the colors and the furniture, the bed, the chair. But then I decided to hang my own pieces inside this bedroom. So it's a bit of a personal fantasy of hanging my own pieces inside this bedroom. I don't know if you recognize, but this one is actually the large one there. So there's an exhibition inside the exhibition, if you wish. And I was thinking that the ultimate, pushing this idea further would be to hang this painting inside the actual room in the Auberge d'Avoux in Auvers-sur-Oise. That would be absolutely amazing. Maybe it will happen. I don't know. Sometime. I can do it. Let's move on. So we have like four pieces left from the exhibition. This piece is still available, my running shoes. It refers to Van Gogh's peasant boots that he painted. So I painted my own running shoes. There's a lot of texture on this one, which I find it sort of looks like the running shoes are really sweaty, like they're dripping with sweat. I really love this piece, so if it doesn't sell, I'll be really happy to have it back and hang it in my home. I love the subject, I love the simplicity, and I don't know if you guys read there's a really interesting text on art that the German philosopher Martin Heidegger wrote on Vincent's peasant boots, so it's also referring to that. And yesterday we saw these two other ones, the sunflower and the grasshopper. The grasshopper, there's a story about this, is because one time I had a collector contact me and saying that there was a fly in one of my paintings, and honestly I didn't know. Because when I paint, I leave the door of the studio open, and it's possible that insects come in and they get stuck in the wet paint. So he was asking me if it was intentional, and so I said, well, I tried not to look bad. So I said, yeah, it's totally intentional. That Van Gogh has a grasshopper in one of his paintings. Well, it refers to that. And I shouldn't say that, but I'm saying it anyway. So yeah, it's true that Van Gogh has a grasshopper. Well, it's just a leg, grasshopper leg in one of his paintings, because he was painting outside and it was stuck in the paint. So it's just anecdotal, but this is why I decided to paint a grasshopper in this Van Gogh exhibition. And then the last piece, this one, Van Gogh's Night Music. So you have a portrait of Van Gogh with some earphones on the dark background. I think that the swirling stars of his starry night, because there was he had this sort of inner music. So that's what I tried to convey in this piece. I think he had this, and it's what kept him alive and sane for a certain amount of time. This is what I wanted to give tribute to. So, this is Pangorama, my exhibition. As I told you before, some pieces are still available, some really good ones. I'm really, really happy with the outcome, with this big enthusiasm. It's just wonderful to receive all this love and admiration.
Maybe the ones that are still available.
Yeah, we can see them, yeah. So there's the running shoes, still available. There are 7 left. So there's sunflowers with iPhone, which has a really nice palette of colors. Ochres, sort of salmon. Then there is Daydream, Rêverie en français. Very colorful and sort of dreamlike. That's why I call it Daydream. There's the portrait of Armand Goulet with the green shadow and the melancholic look. And the three last ones, there's up there the portrait of Joseph Roulet on social media, portrait of Van Gogh with black heart, and my selfie in confinement, which I love. So are there any questions, Patrick?
I think we've dealt with most of them. Some of them are in some different languages. You have one in French you can come in and read here, but it might be a comment. You can look at the screen.
Okay, so I will read them and answer later. So I want to thank you, Patrick, for assisting me with this. Thanks to Taylor also. And I'd say we just end with the little dance with the girls. So we'll drop the camera here and do a little dance. Put on some music, maybe? Yeah, I'll try to put some music.
You should say this is kind of your tradition to do this, right?
Yeah, it is my tradition to do this. Like, anytime I have a really successful exhibition, successful show, I really have to do I like to do a joy dance. So let's start some music and have fun. Come on, Maxi. All right. Thanks, everyone.